psychological standpoint, the question, what is the meaning of life, now becomes what is the meaning in life. So psychologists don't know any more than anyone else the exact definition of life, but what they look at is the meaning all of us create in our own lives. So do we need to know the meaning of life, or can we simply just survive without even pondering these questions? My name is Kate Baker, and today I'll be presenting on the experience of meaning of life from a psychological standpoint. So asking what is meaningful is not one and the same as asking whether or not a person's life is happy or pleasant. So a person's life can be meaningful on behalf of his or her sacrifices. Now, of course, one might argue that life would be meaningless if it were unhappy. But what makes life meaningful is different because what makes life meaningful is different from what makes life happy. Now, a lot of English philosophers write on the meaning of life, and they're trying to develop and evaluate theories that are meant to capture all the particular ways that life could obtain meaning. One of these ways is consciousness. Consciousness is the state of being awake or aware of what is happening around you and having a sense of self. René Descartes, a 17th century philosopher, once said, "I think, therefore I am." From this, we can grasp the idea that the mere act of thinking about one's existence the mere act of one's existence proves that someone is actually doing the thinking. Researchers attack this problem from an evidence-based perspective. So these connections don't explain why the cerebellum, part of the brain which coordinates muscle activity, doesn't give rise to consciousness, but the cerebral cortex does. So according to Tanya Lewis, she explains in her article, "Science is Closing In on the Theory of Consciousness," that these studies don't explain how to tell whether consciousness is present in brain-damaged patients, other animals, or even computers. Now, William James is an American philosopher and psychologist, and he was the leader of the philosophical movement of pragmatism and the psychological movement of function. According to an article about William James by Horace Cowan, James considered consciousness to be a function and not a thing. He considered it to be similar to the way lungs function breathing in the body, that the brain functions as conscious mental awareness. Now, consciousness allows organisms to recognize past, present, and future affairs and plan ahead for future behaviors. Now, this does not occur in bits, though. A person's consciousness is a continuum, not a series linked by thoughts or certain experiences. Breaks in consciousness do occur, however, when we sleep, but it does not interrupt the continuity of the stream. So when we awaken, we have no difficulty making the connections of who we are and who we were. This is because of the personal nature of consciousness. Thoughts are not merely thoughts, they are my thoughts or they are your thoughts. And there's a personal self that separates one's consciousness from that of others. Now, going into the unconscious, Sigmund Freud was a big advocate for researching this. He compared the human mind to an iceberg. He compared consciousness to the tip of the iceberg, what we can see, and the unconscious and subconscious to the bottom of the iceberg, which makes up the majority. Now, unconscious consists of aspects of our personality that we may not even be aware of, and is unseen. Now, going into intelligence, intelligence is the very general mental ability to reason, plan, solve problems, think abstractly, comprehend complex ideas, learn quickly, and from experiences. Humans are now creating machines that can do tasks more quickly, and they're capable of being recognized even as living things to certain researchers. Biologists have thought of this as a new way to learn about life itself. Instead of dissecting animals, artificial life is built from the ground up. Now, there's an advantage to this. According to Nathan Earnhardt, he explains in his article about artificial intelligence that recreating life from a different medium has a great advantage. We are now not limited to our own system of carbon-based life. Biology is the study of life, and on Earth we only have access to this carbon-based life. So trying to define life with only having access to this certain type of life is like trying to define general principles from very specific examples. Now, when we examine organisms of our planet, we can discover things about life, but not the universal life in general. So building life up from basic building blocks might help us find out principles and characteristics of life in general. Thus, we can have a broader and more diverse base of information from which we can better understand what life truly is. So meaning in life is not just theoretical or philosophical construct. but has a bearing on human health and well-being. From a sub and unconscious mind to artificial life and intelligence, the definition of life cannot clearly be defined, but human creativity and science is taking us one step closer. Thank you.